right, all right. So I'm Kimegia, and this is going to be a new show called Hayat Izah. Hayat in Turkish means life, and Izah is like explanation. Normally you would say like Hayat Izahi, explanation of life, but I'm gonna be German for now and just stick the words together. So it's Hayat Izah. Um, and it's basically gonna be a show where I give like a kind of recap over my life so far, what's happening, the work I'm doing, and like how I'm managing everything. And so as you can tell by the thumbnail, there's one pretty interesting thing that's happened so far. Um, so as you may know, I'm a freshman at UCLA for computer science and engineering. And I'm gonna do the 8 clap, but maybe not. And I am always interested in like trying to get better at um, trying to contribute to the open source community. I've used open source software for my whole life, like GIMP, Inkscape, FontForge, not FontStruck. I guess you could call FontStruck also open source, maybe. Um, I've used Blender, um, like all those different like text writers, not Vim, but like things like that use Markdown that you download. Um, I've used some like video editing things that were open source, although I didn't have the best experience with them. So I'm using DaVinci Resolve now, which is still pretty good. And so, okay, so be me. You're just starting your first quarter in UCLA, and you're looking around at the people in your major, okay? And a lot of people are in CS, and they're like, I've never coded before. Or I've coded and I've made like I've done APCS in high school, right? And I've like coded on paper with my little pencil and stuff, and I know some Java, but I haven't like done that much. That's most people, right? And they're in CS because like it's a happening thing right now. Like CS is a broken major. It's ridiculous how much you can do with this one skill, and how much people will like, how many benefits you will get from internships, your jobs, hackathons. Like it's insane. Yeah. Okay. These are all first years. And then you meet someone who, from the age of 13, has been contributing to FFmpeg, Node, the WhatWG, like URL standards, like all these things. Okay. And you're like, holy shit, this is a big fish right here. And then, it's even interestinger if he's your friend and his name's Tim. So, sponsor of this video is Tim. Tim is one of the most interesting people I've met, and also a contributor to Node.js. And Node is basically server-side JavaScript. So it's like a really useful thing if you have a server, and if you want to do other kind of server-related things, like maybe a Twitter bot, something that like works with APIs automatically or anything like that, you can use it, and it's interesting. And he basically, some months ago, he looked through the code base, and he found some bugs and some features that are pretty easy to implement, and he kind of tutorialized them. And he posted in our computer science group, he's like, hey, anyone want to do this? And I was like, sign me up, I'll try it. So what I ended up doing was basically the standards for how URLs are encoded has been updated. Basically, there are characters on the keyboard or characters in anywhere in Unicode that are encoded with something called a percent encoding. So if you ever done a Google search and then you see a bunch of %20s in the URL, you're like, what the heck is that? That's a space. So, I mean, spaces I think aren't allowed in URLs, so they percent encode them as 20s. There's like a bunch of other characters that are percent encoded in this fashion, and the reason is sometimes it's not allowed in the URL, and sometimes it's to protect against code insertion. So I'm not a huge expert on this stuff, but I think that, so there's this type of hacking called cross-site scripting, XCS, and it's basically where somebody kind of factors in code into a URL and then socially engineers a victim to click on that URL or execute it somehow. Maybe it's in a 1x1 pixel image on your website. And what happens is the browser goes to that URL, and as soon as it gets there, it executes code in the website. So like a common way this is really bad is some banks at some point, they had an online banking system, and when you wanted to transfer money between multiple accounts, they would send like a REST request to their backend. They boxed up everything you wanted, all your information for the transfer, and they sent it into their backend, and it did all the math there. It's probably like MySQL or something. And then it will return, and it'll say, hey, you just transferred money to Mr. John. Mr. John says thank you, something like that. So you can, sometimes you can take that request, transfer the money from this account to that account, this much amount, here's the routing number. You can take that information and stick it inside of the URL, and then have someone click on it. Like, let's say you just send it through Facebook Messenger or email or something, and they click on it, and then it'll open up, their bank account, and then execute the request, and you just lost like $50,000 or whatever. Oh no, curse you, internet. So that's cross-site scripting in a nutshell. And percent encoding is a way of putting, it's like a line of abstraction between actual characters, like strings and code. It like tries to separate the two, I guess. And so what I did was I basically, there's a new standard where left chevron, right chevron, grav, a few other characters have been marked, and like we should percent encode these. And I just sort of wrote a new lookup table that percent encoded them. So now whenever you do your node stuff and you need to work with URLs, like there'll be a little bit more security in there. And it's because of me, so you're welcome. And yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Like, here's this thing that I just whipped up. It wasn't actually that hard to do. The hard part was learning how to use Git with like an existing repository, because I've only ever used it with my own stuff. So you have to like fork, you have to make your changes. You have to fork, make a new branch, make your changes, commit, rebase, and then, pull request. And like, that was a lot. I originally thought when you pull request, it goes to the same repo. So I didn't know you could pull request from a branch of a fork into master of like the main, repository. So I was like, whoa, this is how it works, huh, in the real world. And yeah, it just got approved like some weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, because it's winter break now. And like, wow, now something I wrote is going, like, when people update their node, it's going to be on their machine, and they could be all over the world. It's like I've been spreading my seed, It's insane. So I really wanted to like work more with open source repos. Like just a few hours ago, there's this font I love called Carla, and the guy making it decided to add support for French and a few other languages. So he made like the guillemets, which is like the double chevrons, which is how they do quotations in French, and he made the Cedilla, Siwa Cedilla. I was like, let's have it for Turkish too. Why not? And so I made new characters and put them in the FontForge file and re-exported, and I did a pull request this morning, so let's see if he remembers, because it hasn't been updated since 2015. But I'm using a new font now. I decided to switch everything over to this font called Poppins, because Poppins actually has like many more weights than Carla. I like to play around with weights, and it's also made by the same guy, John Pinchot or something, I forgot. So, win-win. I love geometric fonts anyways. So what's been happening? How was fall quarter, right? UCLA is an insanely huge school, and you would think that like with so many people, you might get lost really easy, and you might like be overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed, but I was not lost, which was amazing. I've actually felt much less lonely at UCLA than like anywhere else in my life. Like, honestly, I was lonely in high school. And the reason is that we get out at 3:30, take a bus, we're home. Home for the rest of the day. And I would just go to my room, like I am right now. Here's my room. And I would just sort of sit and work and like play video games and message people on Facebook and stuff. And it was like, I wanted to go to people's houses and stuff. But the thing was, so I went to North Hollywood High School, which is they have a magnet. I went to the magnet there, which is sort of like, it's a highly gifted magnet. It's a place where they kind of aggregate a lot of gifted students. And I went there because a lot of my friends were going there, and because they have a Science Olympiad team, and because they had a lot of opportunity and stuff. And I really enjoyed it, but like I felt like it was really cliquey. At least my class, it was small. I had like 52 people in the class by the end of the year, I think, somewhere around there. I had like 10 girls. It was bad. And I felt like I was always trying to push through the cliques and like talk to everybody, and I wasn't being rewarded for it, because I felt like people were either not that interesting, or they were kind of facetious, or when I finally got to them, they would give me like much more terse conversation, and then they would turn to their friends and like have a blast. And I felt really out of it. I had a really good group of friends, like 3 or 4 of which are like really good friends, but they were much more introverted. I was always, ever since maybe freshman year, I've been like a huge extrovert. I don't like just sitting by and like being by myself for too much. I need to find people who I enjoy being with. So I don't know, I'm just an extrovert like that. And my friends were almost all introverts, and it was hard because I would try to go to other groups and like mingle, and they kind of rejected them all. They were like, who needs these like effers? I shouldn't curse. Adpocalypse, right? I was always like nomadic, going back and forth with them and with others, and I also tried to meet a lot of people in the regular school, and frankly I had more fun with them sometimes, because they would just be more they weren't really high strung, they were relaxed and a little bit more crude and so it'd be fun, and I think here at UCLA everybody seems to be pretty outgoing. If you kind of crack their shell a little bit, if you get them out there, they'll look at you when you talk to them and not like break away and check their Snapchat every 5 seconds. And there are people who are not as high strung about grades here, which is amazing because my school, I mean, I don't know, I think they really cared about grades to the point where they would be like pestering teachers and stuff. I don't know. I didn't like it. I feel like there are people who, are interesting at UCLA. I felt like I don't want to brag, but I do game design, but I also do graphic design, and I also do web design, and I'm working on a language, and I'm also like, I like to play basketball, and I also like throw a frisbee around, and I also like, I've written raps, and like, I don't know. I think, I think 18 years is long enough that you can do more than one thing and be good at more than one thing. I felt like in high school I was kind of surrounded by people who were one-dimensional, or they were interesting and multidimensional, but they would never talk about it. I felt like I was sort of marooned, and I didn't really like connect that well with a lot of people because I just I mean, I don't know, I didn't feel the aura. The aura. When I say aura, I mean personality plus vibes. So what people the feeling of people that they directly communicate to you, and the feeling that they kind of indirectly communicate. And I've found, I haven't found too many, but I found like a fair amount of people at UCLA who have kind of a similar aura to me. Like, they're outgoing, they do a lot of things, they enjoy analyzing things, they don't get stressed out very easily, they, aren't heavy drinkers or go to a lot of parties. I'll be frank, I mean, I like to be silly, I like to joke around and stuff, but I haven't gone to a single party yet, and I haven't drinking any alcohol or smoked any drugs, because, part of it is like, I grew up Muslim, so like, I kind of don't want the JoJo. It's not my thing. The other thing is that like, sometimes I just don't get the right vibes from those things. So I remember I have a lot of friends who go to parties, and I will decide to not go, and then the day after they'll tell me, oh my God, it was terrible. I twisted, like, this girl, threw up on someone else's shirt or their bag, someone twisted their ankle, people got written up by the RAs or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking for something that's not completely degenerate. Like, maybe a dance party where there's no alcohol, that'd be kind of cool. Or like, I don't know, video game parties are always fun. I mean, I love Counter-Strike, but I can play other games too. I like Smash, I mean, who do I main? In Project M, I main Zero Suit. Obvious reasons. I'm just kidding. But I also play Marth a little bit. And so you would think like, oh, he doesn't go to any parties, he's not fun. But like, I've been having a lot of fun, actually. Because at UCLA, or at any college really, you can just say, hey, do you want to get dinner? Hey, do you want to go do this? And people will say, sure, and you're doing it in like 10 minutes. Here, I live in the suburbs, kind of away from everybody. And if I want to say, hey, do you want to do this? It's like, well, you got to arrange a time, and then you got to find the date, and you got to convince your parents, you got to convince their parents, you got to, keep track of your belongings, you got to, like, drive, you got to do this, and then you got to, like, greet them very, formally when you get there to appease your parents, and, you got to, like, and then your parents have to stay there and watch you, and then it's like, I'd rather just ditch all of that and just live in a dorm and have someone else in another dorm, and then you go to their room and it's like, boom, we're here. Or you go to a dining hall together, boom, we're here. It's so dynamic. It's so there's so much less barriers to social interaction, and meaningful social interaction at that. It's not like, I can like pull up my messenger and I can text people. Like, I can text people anywhere. But UCLA or any college, you can just go, pull up your, go to like a gaming place, or you have games on your own computer, or you can eat together, you can draw together, you can play frisbee or sports together. It's like, it's like this is what I want to live like after college too. I need some like group living situation, maybe not an apartment, maybe not a condo, but something like that. I remember I told this to one of my friends, and he's like, yeah, you'd fit in a retirement community. Yeah, I guess retirement communities are kind of like this, in the sense that there's provided food and water and, living spaces, but there's got to be something for young people too. Okay, so that's my rant on how I love it. It's like the extrovert's paradise, college. And now I can finally like let loose, and I can like talk to people, enjoy myself, and not like have to worry about cliques, not worry about like strange social circumstances. It's just like blank slate everything. It's wonderful. I'm really grateful my parents are paying for all of this. So what else is happening? Okay. So I am in a number of clubs. I'm in ACM Studio. ACM is like Association of Computational Machinery or something, and and they have like tons of clubs in our school and in other schools. And one of them is Studio, which is like a game development and VR focused club. And they basically were working on like a first person shooter. It's like an asymmetrical first person shooter. You're like a farmer, and there's a bunch of chickens, and there are like a certain number of chickens that are evil, or we call them Bolsha chicks, like Bolsheviks, but they're chicks, and they're looking for lock picks so that they can unlock the locks on the gate and escape, and all the animals can escape, and then you like lose all of your money and die alone, right? So you have a shotgun, and so you got to hunt down. You have to look at like the mob of chickens and find out which ones are the Bolsheviks by their actions, and then you have to hunt them down. And it's an interesting game. It's called Foul Play, I think. I'm actually working on some of my own games right now. I've been working on like a 2-player, 1 keyboard, local multiplayer shooter game called Kedi Fight. Kedi in Turkish means cat, and Kedi Fight, yeah, it's like duck game but with cats. Like, let's be honest, you can jump around. There's like guns that I've modeled, and you can pew 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 pew, and it's like the last cat standing wins. And it only takes 4 buttons to learn, so it's really easy. It's really cute. I'm like ironing out the gameplay. One problem I'm having is that it's kind of not that fun just yet, so I really have to like figure out what I can do to make it more fun. I need like more weapon variety, I think. Yeah. Other things like that. Actually, so I was working on that for a while, but to play test that you need 2 people, right? I'm here in my room for the next 3 weeks alone. I don't have 2 people. Okay, so I'm actually working on another game in tandem, and it's basically a game where I'm testing the limits of what I can learn with artificial intelligence. That was my father. We broke one of the strings of our guitar, so we're trying to fix it at some point. Anyway, so what was I saying? One interesting thing about my work in that first-person shooter capture the flag game where I'm working on the AI is I went through a lot of different stages of a lot of different concepts for the AI. Okay, and so the reason is I'm a Counter-Strike gamer. I play Insurgency. I am used to like really tactical stuff. So I'm used to playing Defuse and having like all these different grenades and like lining up smoke throws, and I'm used to cutting the pie. If you've ever been in the military, that's like, or slicing the pie. That's when you try to clear areas around corners in such a fashion that you account for your own reaction time. And all these things, like I play pretty tactically, and AI is really difficult to write for a first-person shooter that plays very tactically. The reason is so the way AI is controlled out of the box in Unity, there's navigation AI in Unity, like out of the box. And what it does, so you have a nav mesh, which you can bake into the scene, and it basically looks for all of the flat planes facing up, and kind of it offsets inward, and then it draws a mesh, and that represents all of the area that a AI controlled character can stand on. And you can place a waypoint somewhere on that mesh, and it will find the fastest route to get there, and it will, if you add a nav mesh agent, it will actually get there. It will walk there. You can control like how it moves and stuff. But so that's called A star, by the way. A star pathfinding is finding the quickest path given a nav mesh to a certain point. So that would be great in like a racing game, or somewhere where any game where it's players will do better by getting somewhere fast as possible. But in a game like Counter-Strike or any diffuse mode kind of game in a first-person shooter, that's often like one of the worst ways to play, because that AI is blindly running through areas, and and not like, it's not aware of its surroundings. So what I tried to do was I wanted to make an AI that would auto-detect all of the corners in between itself and its waypoint, its goal, and it would clear each of them. And I made a Figma, which is like a graphic design program. I made a Figma doc where I mathematically defined how the path would work. You would take like a perpendicular from every corner to its nearest wall, and then you draw an arc around that. And the AI would go along the far wall because, optically speaking, if you're farther from a corner than someone else, you'll see them first. It would go along the far wall, and then it would take those arcs and aim at the wall, aim at the corner, and in order to clear areas, like in the safest way possible. And I wanted to do that in Unity, my game engine, Unity, and I couldn't do it. And it's because the nav mesh is really hard to work with. It's basically read-only, you can't modify it, and the vertices are stored in an array, but it's really difficult to figure out which vertice is which. And that basically makes all my plans impossible. And so I was grappling with this for a while. I was like, how do I make good AI in a first-person shooter with all these restraints? So for a while, I was going to use this other pathfinding solution for Unity by Aaron Groenberg, and it's his own A-star implementation. And the most efficient way of using that would be a grid. So it would like overlay a grid onto your level and find out which of those grid squares were, part of the level and you couldn't walk on them, and which of them were the ground. And there are some things in Groenberg's work that I really like. He wrote his own flea paths generator. So like, you given a threat, an agent will calculate an exit path, a fleeing path, such that it would be out of view of that threat afterwards. that's really useful for first person shooters. Like if your AI is low on health and he's like losing a battle, he might retreat a little bit. I do that in CS a lot because I'm a scaredy cat. But I just couldn't figure out how to work it. I don't know. I'm so slow. Like I don't know how to like work with other people's work. I like to build things from scratch because I don't know. I'm getting distracted by my cat. My cat wants to come in, but this is my me time right now. Okay. So what did I end up doing? Basically, I ended up making a game, designing the mechanics of the first-person shooter to benefit the AIs I know I'm able to build as much as possible. So what I made was a capture the flag game. It's 3 flags on their team, 3 flags on your team, and there's spawn locations for your team and their team kind of dispersed throughout the map, but on one side or the other. And it's simple, it's kind of like Halo where there are gun pickups and power-ups on different places on the map, and the objective is to just, capture as many flags as possible. And so what's easy about that in terms of making bots for that game is that in most capture the flag games, the best way to play it is to bum rush, which is to sort of just rush the flag, take it, and rush back. Because if you stay and fight too much, you might die and lose the flag and they can take it back. Or I guess in my game, as soon as they touch it, it goes back. Or actually, I don't know. Maybe I'll change that. I don't know. I'm thinking. And so the player, the AI always has a waypoint to go to. And there are guns and pickups and, health packs throughout the map as like pickups. And so when the AI needs a gun, when it needs health, when it needs more ammo, it can A-star to those different things and find the best path. And as to make A-starring more powerful, I'm going to kind of make the map a little bit maze-like. I'm going to make it a little complicated. I'm trying to make it vertically complicated, but so far that's actually kind of difficult. That way, the fact that an AI can find the fastest path to one thing, or I should say, finding the fastest path to an area is difficult, so that the fact that the AI can do it makes the AI relatively strong. Does that make sense? If the map is too simple, then the A-star isn't as powerful a tool, if that makes sense. And so I'm working on this right now. I hope to release by the end of winter break, so I'm kind of like crunching it out. And honestly, I think it's coming along well. So I'm working on that right now. Okay, another thing about that I want to say is I'm a terrible coder, and I've recently been looking up new standards for coding, and I looked at the solid principles. There's like single responsibility, there's open-close principle, Liskov substitution, and all these different things. And they're ways of making your code more scalable so that you can make more content without having to fiddle with things that you don't need to, and so that you can understand it from a glance. My problem is I work on, my stuff. I write a lot of kind of throwaway code, and I come back to it months later, and I have no idea what the bejesus is going on. I just 2 days ago, I went back to the capture the flag thing. I had my finals week, so I didn't do any dev, or I did a little dev, a little development over the finals week, but not much. So after coming back to it for so long, after a while, I came back to it and I was lost and I was overwhelmed, and then I kind of switched between Facebook and YouTube and Counter-Strike for a while until I mustered the courage to go back to it and work. So I've been using these things called actions. They've been introduced in .NET 2.0, I think. Actions are an event system within C#. They're basically a bundled way of doing events, and they help you loosely couple your code. So what I was doing before was I was doing a lot of get components where I this thing needs to know about the status of that thing, so I get component it, and then when I want to execute code on that script, I'll execute it through the get component. Okay, and it's terrible to do this too much, because then you end up with tons of get components everywhere. They're slow. When you want to change behavior, you'll have to edit the code of 2 classes rather than 1. It just gets really messy, very spaghetti-like, and I've hated it, but I had no idea what to do else. Okay, so I've been using actions because what actions do is it kind of broadcasts a message. It's like, hey, the number of magazines in the inventory has changed now. And then my HUD, my heads-up display populator script, is listening for that action, and then when it hears it, it's like, oh, the magazine's updated, and then it'll update the UI. And that way, I don't have to have a get component between the two. I can just receive an event and then execute code within my own script. So it's better for the single responsibility principle. That's one thing. They're also not that expensive. You can kind of action it up, and it doesn't impact performance too much from what I'm hearing. So I'm trying to port everything in my game to actions now to make it better, but oh my god, it's hellish. So, because I have a lot of big classes I have to work with. Okay, and the last thing that's happening in my life, well, I mean, there's a lot of things happening in my life, but one of the last things I want to talk about, and it's just slipped my mind and I completely forgot. Oh, so I'm in Creative Labs, which is a subset of Bruin Entrepreneurs, and it's like a club where you split up into teams and then you make a little creative thing, like a web app or a web experience or a video or anything like that, and then you present it after a while. So my team, we decided to make a web app that teaches lay people an intuition for how neural networks work. It's called NeuroNets, and there's no actual neural network within the web app. It's just kind of a walkthrough. It's like a tutorial that focuses on each individual part of the neural network. So we teach you about the different kinds, what neural network means kind of on a fundamental level, as opposed to traditional AI programming, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. It shows what is actually happening between hidden layers, what synapses do, what is bias and weight, what are the activation functions, what's the cost function. We're kind of zooming in on each thing, and we're adding a little bit of interactivity for each thing. So one thing I built was where it's a little section of one node two input nodes going to one output node with no hidden layers, and you get to play around with the weights and stuff, and it's like a dot classification problem. You have some orange dots, you have some blue dots, and you have to draw an orange region and a blue region such that the orange region The orange region contains only orange dots, and vice versa. And so you get to play around the weights and stuff and the bias, and you see how the line rotates and moves. And it gives you a feel for like the matrix transformations that's actually happening inside of the synapses. And one little side note, when I went to demo day to present it, I was the only one in my team who showed up. We had a team of like maybe 16, 20 people, and like I was the only one. So it didn't go too badly though. I think I presented it pretty well. I was kind of the only one who kind of walked around and talked and gesticulated. Everyone was kind of, sort of stood with their arms to their sides, like talking into the microphone and then kind of thrusting it in each other's faces, like, get it away from me. I don't know, a bunch of fucking introverts, you ask me, but whatever. They're lovely. I love those people. So yeah, like that's all been happening. And then my birthday is coming up. Oh my god, my birthday is in 4 days. It's 12/22, and I really want to like play frisbee and play my card game Sliga and like enjoy myself with my friends, like my close friends. But I gotta arrange a date and a time. I gotta like figure out people's schedules, and it's just And then like 2 days after that, it's my mom's birthday. We gotta make her breakfast and gifts, and I gotta make a card for her. And 2 days after that, it's my grandmother's birthday, and gotta make a card and gifts and all that. And then a day before that, it's Christmas, and probably is Bayram too. I don't know, maybe Bayram comes later this year. It's just like, it's so much stuff, and like it's incredible how overwhelmed I can feel just being alone in my room here by myself with no distractions and nothing. I just feel like there's so much stuff happening. Oh my god, Sadie. Okay, there's so much stuff happening. And a lot of it is sort of my own fault in a sense. Like, it's my own projects that I'm working on and stuff. But it's like, I wish I could just pause time. I could just pause it, like beep, 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 pause, and then do all the things I want to do, take years and finish them all up, and then unpause it and then relax with friends and, actually have time, pass time, but with friends, but in my pause state, I'd be by myself and I just crank everything out. All my games, all my songs, all my websites, all the projects I do. I just want to crank it all out, finish it all up, and then enjoy myself. And this is the mentality that is holding me back, because I know for a fact that I've come up with more projects than I'll be able to finish in like my lifetime. I am occupied for the next 90 years, guys. Like, it's ridiculous. So I'm gonna have to learn how to do the work-life balance. I'm gonna have to learn how to enjoy myself, have a nice life and everything, hang out with friends, and not be alone in my room like a loser for whatever reason. But I'm also gonna have to like be able to do my projects, and like I'm gonna have to find long blocks of time where I can just sit and look at a piece of code, a bunch of classes, and figure out what they're doing. Like, game dev, it takes a lot of time, guys. It's like, imagine, you're making a whole universe or a world. Okay, not a universe. Imagine you're making a world. Like, imagine you're God and you're like, all right, guys, I'm God. I have to make a world now. It's going to take you forever. Like, maybe it took him 7 days or whatever. I don't know. Christians say 7 days. I don't even know what Muslims say. I forgot. But we probably believe he took his time. He probably kicked up in his armchair, like, you know what? It's going to happen when it happens. Like, I'll just relax for the next millennia. But, like, think about that. You're making a world. You're making art, music, gameplay systems. You have to do netcode. You have to do user experience. You have to do graphic design for, like, the website, the menu, the heads-up display. You have to do like sound design. You have to you have to play test. It has to be fun. It has to be well marketed. You have to market it. You have to tutorialize components of it. It's like you have to localize it so your friends in other countries can play it. It's like, oh my god, guys, it's ridiculous. It's just it's so much for one person to do if you think about it in that way. But really, all that I mainly do is the gameplay systems, and then all that other stuff, it just kind of slowly comes afterwards as I sort of bring myself to do it. So it's been a long video. My name is Kimega, or Hakan Alpay, as you might say. My cat is crying, so she's probably hungry, so I have to go feed her. This has been a long video. I don't even know why I did this, but there was so much churning through my mind that I felt like I had to do it. So enjoy yourself. Have a great day. Drink a cup of green tea. Do whatever you want. This is Kimega signing out. I don't even know what my closer should be.